Hello, you beautiful savages. Welcome back into another episode of Fully Unscripted. A little bit different here today. If you can remember a couple episodes ago, I had to join in through Riverside because I was on the road working. Todd is actually in New York trying to get the Italian mob to sponsor this podcast. So, Todd, we appreciate you for that. He's in New York right now. He'll be joining us here in a second. We've got a lot to talk about today. Unfortunately, we have lost a legend, the Pirate himself. It's been a sad week in the college football community. Rest in peace to Coach Mike Leach. Prayers to all the Mississippi State community, the people that he has touched over the years, people that he played for, people that he coached, people that he mentored, people that were just overall touched by him. We'll talk about him and what he meant to the game. We'll also break down this year's college football bowl mania. We'll go through each and every single one of these games and make picks. Then we have an interview with the Draft Network analyst / host, Miss Brooke Kromer, to talk about some NFL news. And then to wrap it up, we'll have a little Christmas. And to wrap it up, we'll have a little bit of a Christmas song draft. So, Fully Unscripted, Episode 12. This episode shall begin right about now. Joining me now from looks like a top studio apartment area in the middle of downtown New York City. Like I said, trying to get the Italian mob to sponsor this. Hopefully they can help us out with this podcast. Mr. Todd Lanner. Todd, how you doing, buddy?
How we doing?
I'm doing
I hear it's
great.
raining there.
It is. It is a very gloomy day, as you can hear. We've already got the sirens going. They've been going since the ass crack of dawn.
Par for the course.
Yep, as it does every day here in Lexington. You're up in New York. You're up there for a couple reasons. You're up there to spend quality time with the girlfriend, which I respect and commend. And you're also up there to watch the Cats take on who they play this week in Madison Square Garden?
UCLA at Madison Square Garden on Saturday. We got a little bit of work stuff today and tomorrow. This included, and at the moment, actually, to the first 2 days, we're staying across the river in Jersey City. So,
you're over in You're in Tony Soprano country.
So you got the skyline over there. Not a bad little setup. But then we're moving over to Manhattan on Thursday morning, so tomorrow morning.
Are you going to look around for all the nice Christmas stuff and a big Christmas tree in Times Square and all that stuff?
We got to go find the tree.
You're a big fan of Christmas trees. That's one thing I've learned to come to know about you is that you are an absolute fiend for a good Christmas tree.
I'm a Christmas guy, man. I'm a little depressed. We've been in the middle of our remodel, so we haven't been able to decorate like I normally would, but don't worry, we'll get it done when I get back, and you'll all come over for a little cocktail party before the holiday. We'll have a good time.
A little welcoming party for the new renovations that you and Maria have been slaving over these past 3 or 4 months, seems like. Before we get into talking about Mike Leach and the college bowl games, let's go ahead and talk about Kentucky basketball. What's going on there in New York? What do you see the UCLA matchup looking like, and how the Cats can prepare to take down the Bruins this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think mostly it's us. We're at a point in the season right now where we have a lot of progress to make as an internal unit. We have to decide who we are as a team, how we're going to play offensively, how we're going to play defensively, really what the lineups look like, when we're going to sub, when we're going to use certain matchups and lineups. A lot of that's on Cal to figure out, but we got a Hall of Fame coach at the helm, so I have no doubt that he'll figure out how to put us in a position to win. UCLA is a good ball team, but really right now it boils down to who we are. We've struggled against, some mid-major teams. We've struggled against some teams that we didn't deserve to be in the game. I don't mind the losses. I don't mind missing shots. It's just the little mistakes and nuances, things that are going to prevent us from winning games come road play, or SEC play, I should say. So, you look at a couple examples that they've put out, showcased on the floor the last couple of weeks, and we haven't performed for the first 30 minutes, and then the last 10 minutes we pull away and get a slight win. That's not going to be good enough come league play. There's several teams in the SEC this year they're going to beat our teeth in if we don't play for the first 30 minutes of the ball game. Alabama, Arkansas, really tough teams that are going to be a huge problem even early on in SEC play, and certainly later in the season come March. So we have to figure out how we're going to be who we are first, and then we can worry about the opponents. But it's the little nuances and the slip ups that are causing us issues right now. Missed free throws, not blocking out, getting cut back door. things that you learn in middle school ball, but the cohesiveness, really younger than that, but the cohesiveness of building a unit and being able to rely on the fact that you have a teammate there if you take a risk, or if you how they're going to defend or how they're going to move on the offensive end, and it's just the comfortability of being with your unit, being getting used to having that guy there. The same thing happens with football. If you jump on, give me an example. You decide, hey, I'm going to take a risk here and go for this. You got backup. They're going to move because they know what you're expecting and they've played with you before. This is a unit that hasn't been out there together a lot, but they have played a lot of college basketball games, unlike a lot of teams of Kentucky's past. So I have no doubt they'll figure it out, but unfortunately we're on a quick timeline here at UK. It's a very steep learning curve, so they got to turn it around quick. And this weekend's going to be another example for them to come out and show us that they've done that.
Is it almost like a Christmas tournament up there? Is there different teams playing in this in Madison Square Garden, or is it just Kentucky UCLA?
No, I think this is just Kentucky UCLA. They've gotten so mixed and mingled over the years, to be honest. I'm not even positive about that. Let me check real quick. But they do the Champions Classic every year that we play in, which is the first game of the season. Sometimes that's up in New York. A lot of times it's in Brooklyn, Chicago, and this one I don't believe is one of those. It's definitely, obviously not the Champions Classic. We already played that game this year, but I don't think that this is involved in any type of tournament. Let me make sure real quick.
Well, while you're looking at
it isn't.
It isn't? Okay. And you were talking about how, this team, like I said, with you talking basketball, with me talking football, that's why we kind of started this thing, was to go back and forth on kind of asking the average fan questions. So now it's my turn to ask average fan questions about basketball. And you were talking about there how, this team has been playing a lot of college basketball together. It almost seems like that this is the most basketball that I've seen a Kentucky team get to play together. I mean, you talk about the trip down to the Bahamas, all the early practices and different things like that, to where, with me in a football mind, we have spring practice. Then we have, summer conditioning, to where, coaches really aren't allowed to be out there and kind of run practice, but, they give us a script. And it's okay, we need you to work on this. We need to do individual drills here. And don't get me wrong, they're up in their offices out there looking with binoculars and making sure everything goes good. And we always have guys out there, with video cameras and the sky in the eye so we can watch film on it. But does it seem like this team here has had enough time to be able to build that cohesiveness and build that chemistry, and they're just not living up to the expectations of what Kentucky basketball should be? Whereas teams in the past, like the teams you were a part of, the teams that became before and after you, to where it seems like that Kentucky was just kicking ass from day one and then going on throughout the rest of the season. Are we seeing a drop in production from this team, even though that they've been playing together for such a long time, considering, like you said, they're a young team, but they've been playing with each other, since spring, since summer, since these guys basically arrived on campus, not just the practices, not just the Bahamas trips, not just the games they've already played, but, I would imagine that they'd be playing some kind of pickup games, within the practice facility, getting to learn and understand each other of, their strengths, their weaknesses. And it just seems like, and this is a guy from an outside looking in, people may call me an idiot for it, but it just seems like that they're not on the same page with each other still. Is that a correct statement?
I would agree with it. And there's no excuses that can be made for it any longer at this point. The summer trip to the Bahamas gave Kentucky 10 extra practice days than they would normally be allowed to have ahead of that trip. I can speak from personal experience that with the 2015 team, when we were able to do that, it made vast difference in the way that we were able to play together, from the start of regular practice in the summer, after that trip to the Bahamas, but also the cohesiveness of the units. We got to know each other so well. You're going scuba diving with guys. You're going down water slides and fishing, and just going to the pool and going to movies and all that stuff so much earlier on. And speaking from personal experience in your own right, what that does for a team. It builds a brotherhood. You're going through those workouts together every day, and It allows you to look at your teammates a little bit differently, be able to count on them a little bit differently outside of things that are happening on the practice field or floor. So we had an early jump there. And to be honest, I was in the Bahamas. I got to go down there and see them. They looked fantastic in workouts leading up to the Bahamas trip. They looked fantastic on the floor in the Bahamas. Granted, it wasn't against any fantastic competition, but they looked good. And they were doing the things that, regardless of the competition, that you want to see. They were moving without the ball. They were talking on defense. They were getting together in huddles after a dead ball before free throws on the offensive end of the floor or the defensive end of the floor. They were, talking each other through their mishaps and mistakes, which is something that is necessary, specifically early on. Something Cal likes to do as the season goes on is pass the reins to the team. He's very good about taking a back seat later in the season and letting the guys kind of run the show, and having that early opportunity to, get started in that direction, especially with a returning point guard who's an All-American and the returning National Player of the Year to kind of be that extension of the coaching staff on the floor. You would think that we would be a little bit more of a cohesive unit than we are right now. Bottom line is, it's a tough thing to ask of a bunch of young kids to perform at this level this quickly. But like I said, it's a steep learning curve here. This fan base has little patience for things like that. We know that going in.
Big Blue Nation has a lot of patience, bro. So much patience.
We know that going in, though. Cal goes in and sits in the living room of every recruit and says that this isn't for everybody. This school isn't for everybody. We're going to demand a lot out of you, not only on the floor, but mentally. You have to be able to withstand the criticism that you're going to get from the fan base and from the national media. It's not an easy place to play college basketball. And unfortunately, most of the guys that are here most years are younger than, by the time you started dealing with all the pressure that you had to deal with, as the starting linebacker, you were 20 years old. Most of the time they're 17 or 18. And that's a big difference in maturity over the course of that. Plus you got to see guys older than you that had to deal with it. You had that mentorship. Most of the time with this team, we don't. But again, nobody wants to hear that. Those aren't excuses that you get to make publicly. Those are things that when you walk in the door here, that's going to be demanded of you, not asked, but demanded. And in order to be successful, you have to be prepared for that and able to withstand the criticism and able to play through it. Social media has played a huge factor in that as well. When guys aren't performing well, they're going to hear about it, and it's not really avoidable. So the short answer is no, we can't make excuses any longer. First, it's mid-December at this point. We're running out of, I think I said this last week on the podcast, but we're running out of opportunities to prove who we are until SEC play. And like I said, the SEC is going to be a gauntlet this year. So SEC's up. There's a lot of dangerous teams that have capabilities of making Final Four runs. There's some championship contenders in this league. If Kentucky wants to be one of them, we have to turn the corner quickly. So even if it's a justifiable excuse, it makes no difference. March is coming, and it's coming quick, and we have to be able to turn that corner. And UCLA is not going to be an easy feat this weekend. I think they're currently ranked, they're currently ranked 16th. They lost to they lost the only two ranked games they played. They lost to Illinois, who was 18 at the time, and they lost to Maryland. I'm sorry. They haven't lost to Maryland. They play Maryland tonight. They lost to somebody else. Baylor. They lost to Baylor.
So they play Maryland tonight, and then they're going to come up to you. They're going to come up. Okay. Now, you're not traveling with the team, obviously. So you're up there for other shit too. So players are still here. They're still practicing over there. Then they'll fly out probably what? The game's on Saturday?
They should fly out Thursday.
Thursday? Okay.
Well, they might. Typically, we come the day before the game, but being as how it's Christmas break, there's no class on Friday. They'll likely leave on Thursday. Brandon, I'm sorry, by the way. I'm trying to stay in the light, but I guess the sun's moving. Who would have thought? So I'm going to try to shift here. There we go.
There you go. Okay. But, how you're talking about, the different pressures with these guys having to deal with, and obviously social media playing a big part of it. Do you think that, especially now, I've always had this question, not just for basketball players, but for football players as well, that being a paid athlete now, like you were down in the Bahamas doing some work with Oscar at that time, you were in your little Quentin Tarantino set looking like you were about to direct a new movie. Do you think that adds a little bit more of pressure, to those kids? And do you think that adds a different kind of, I'm going to say, hate on social media because these guys are now paid athletes, almost like semi-professional players?
Yeah, it absolutely weighs into it, even though it shouldn't. I mean, it shouldn't as far as the game of college athletics goes. It should as far as the way of the world, because that's going to prepare them for what life is like. But these deals aren't based on performance per se, but
Bullshit.
but granted, you're going to see the starters and the guys that are
That's what
getting
I'm
a lot
saying,
more
dude. You're
minutes
not
and
you're
playing a
not going
lot
to see
better get bigger deals.
you're not going to see a Pine Rider get a $500,000 contract or anything like that. So for anybody that says that it's not based upon performance, I call bullshit on that, because if you're not out there performing and you're not out there the guy that's, in basketball terms, you're not the guy out there that's, putting points on the board, you're not getting rebounds, you're not, accumulating to the team's win, you're not going to get an NIL deal.
Yeah,
So, I mean, and then this aspect, and I'm sorry, man, I keep messing with my eye here. I have naturally extremely long eyelashes, so I'm trying to get this. It's like in Django. Hold on a second, I'm messing with my eye hole. I can't see shit out of this thing. I really can't. So I'm probably going to be squinting most of this episode. But
well, so am
uh,
I because I'm staring into the sun.
well, I mean, at the end of the day, you chose to be, 100 stories up, you're actually right by water. So I don't know if
It's
you
true.
realize that water reflects sunlight pretty well. That's why
It
you get
does.
sunburnt pretty good when you're out there on the water. It's a little fishing tip for you there. But at the end of the day, I think, and I'm saying this as a joke, but I'm also like being serious. Paid under the table college athletics greater than NIL.
I agree. I agree. I
Because at the
mean,
end of the day, that is 100% performance based.
yeah. Well, the thing is, the NIL stuff is just going to allow more ammunition for people to use against you,
Yeah.
because it's public. Um, you know, if somebody's on a billboard outside the arena and then they go out and shoot, 2 for 14, then everybody that's walking out after that game who's upset that they had a bad performance is going to walk past a, you know, larger than life photo of them advertising some business and have something to say about it. Same as they do with professional athletes.
Yeah, they're going
I mean,
to
the
walk out,
biggest
throw the
argument.
paint bottles at it. They're going to throw, whatever they want
Yeah.
else at it. And then,
But the biggest argument that even like you and I make, even with the podcast, like we said it about Deshaun Watson like 2 weeks ago. We were like, well, they have to play him. He's making $240 million or whatever it is. Everything's based around that.
yeah,
We're moving in that direction, even if it doesn't appear as blatant as it is right now. But that's the direction that things are moving. I mean, what happens when you have a business that says, yeah, we'll give you, a $250,000 deal for a year, and then they have stipulations in that contract that the athlete and their quote management team doesn't know to look for, and it's it essentially means that they don't have to pay them if they sever the contract, or they're allowed to sever that contract at any given moment without any notice or something, and then they go out and they have a bad performance and they lose that deal. That's going to happen because people are grimy and shady and everything else, and because the management people that are watching over these kids don't know what the hell they're doing. So it's going to be a grimy business, grimy couple of years until it levels out. And quite frankly, I don't know how it's going to, because I don't know who the governing body is going to end up being.
that's what I was going to ask. Do we see in the near future, not like an NCAA type ordeal of organization, but do you see there being like an NIL committee, so where trying to, and more so with the less, trying to protect these kids more than anything? And I know that, people are saying, oh, well, they should be able to make their money, this and that. I agree with that. But at the end of the day, these are 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kids. And, hell, even I'm 25 and I'm still learning, the ins and outs of financial literacy and, living on a certain budget, depending on, how much money you got coming in and different things like that, to where, it would just be a shame if you saw a kid, sign all these deals and not know what to do with that money. And then by the time he's out of college, he's got nothing to show for it. So,
Yeah, I think a committee is inevitable, and I'm in favor of that. The NCAA let go of the rope. after all the pressure that they heard from the schools and everything else, they finally let go of the rope. I don't think there's any way to put the cat back in the bag when it comes to that. Right now, in my opinion, the buck stops with the IRS because they're able to determine, where those lines are, and it's state by state. So I think in order for the NIL to be successful and to be used as a positive thing, there's going to have to be some type of committee put in place that's able to help regulate. And like you said, for the protection of the kids, not to limit the kind of money they can make. I don't think that's the right route to solve this. I think it's just to make sure that there's a checks and balances system, just like everything else. It's what makes this great country run. The president can make a decision, and the president can make a decision, but he can't just go out and implement it into policy. It's got to be there's checks and balances for a reason. That accountability is what's going to make this work, but it's going to take a while before we figure out how to keep that boat afloat properly.
Well, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there's only been two entities in this life that's been undefeated as your people there behind you in New York are just having a spectacular time. Like they don't know we're recording, a top dollar podcast here. I mean, can you tell them to please shut the hell up? Anyways, there's always been two undefeated entities in this life. One of them being LeVar Ball, obviously undefeated, never lost. And then the IRS. They are definitely undefeated, never lost. So, I mean, those are two. I mean, especially more so the IRS. Obviously, the LeVar Ball was a joke, no pun intended. But, sorry, excuse me. But, yeah, at the end of the day, like you're saying, like it's not a matter of fact of we're trying to say you can't make X amount of dollars. We just want to make sure that you have the right people in your corner to make sure that whatever avenue you decide to go down, however much money you're making, you have a process and like you're saying, a checks and balance system to make sure that everything stays right there in the middle, not getting too high, not getting too low, but making sure you're staying right there in the middle. So, I could definitely see a committee coming along here pretty soon, maybe former coaches, former athletic directors, different things like that. But I don't think it needs to be people that are currently in, a specific organization or organization within general in the NCAA because their personal values or their personal judgment based upon NIL might interfere with how this committee is ran. And so you could see, if some people that, aren't for NIL, for some athletic directors or some coaches out there that really weren't for it, could push an agenda of saying, well, we need to limit how much money these kids can make. But at the end of the day, like me and you were agreeing on, that isn't the problem solver. That's not the complete answer. The complete answer here is let's put things in place to where these kids can be able to trust somebody to be able to say, okay, you're making $800,000 this year. Let's go and look what your state, your local FICA, everything's going to come into play, especially with taxes like you're talking about with the IRS. So, it's just a deal to where I think, like you saying, with the NCAA finally just letting go of the rope, they're like, hey guys, listen, you've been on our ass about this forever. Here, take it. See how well you can do with it because, there's a reason why we haven't done it. And at the end of the day, I still think the NCAA was stupid for not doing this earlier. But, we're still in the first 2 years of this. And so at the end of the day, it's going to be a bumpy, first couple years, but like we've already said that, there's going to be a point in time to where, there has to be a committee come together and say, okay, let's just make sure at the end of the day that these kids are getting the proper care that they need for these finances and try to make them as safe as we possibly can. So
it's a lot more about that than it is. I mean, I don't think there's any way that anybody's going to be able to step in and limit, put a cap limit on income. I mean, unless it's regulated in the way that salaries are capped in the NBA. No cap. The way that salaries are capped in the NBA or NFL or whatever, I think that if it goes that direction, that's an entirely different conversation because now you're talking about figuring out a way to level the playing field across Division I athletics, which is, but not going to be an easy feat for whoever's going to try to push that agenda. The NIL committee, in my opinion, would be much more well suited in providing financial literacy, tax advice, making sure that they're well educated on, the best way to set up an LLC and file taxes for
Get
that
that tax
LLC
code,
in
baby.
their specific state. Yeah, what as far as a lot of the NIL stuff was presented in a manner because it allows student athletes to be able to provide for their families to a certain extent. So being able to understand what they're allowed to gift to a family member without implicating additional taxes, those kind of things, I think are the most important. And also, obviously, those are second most important. The most important is protecting them from being railroaded through a contract that they don't necessarily understand what they're agreeing to. So if you can help regulate the contracts and at least provide mentorship on what those need to include and what you need to avoid, and then secondly provide advice and counsel on how to handle that money and where to put it and where to park it and how to pay taxes on it and how to make sure that you're set up for properly for business and all those kinds of things. And then there's, then when you get into the real specifics with, building a website and selling merchandise on your own and those kinds of things, but that's a whole different business aspect. So I think there's going to be a trickle down effect that's going to start with
protection's always key.
Protection,
no matter what you do in life. Well, let's go ahead and shift gears here. Like I said in the intro, it's been a sad week for the college football community. We have lost an absolute legend of the game. The Pirate himself, Mike Leach, passed this week unexpectedly. He was rushed to the hospital early this week. And then we found out, a couple days later that he had passed. It's just been, a shell shock, for a lot of people. And it's very sad to see one of the biggest innovators of the game and one of the best personalities that the game of football has ever been graced with, pass so soon and so early on. He's meant so much to a lot of people. Former players have come out and spoke about what he meant to them. Guys like Tim Couch, guys like Cliff Kingsbury, Gardner Minshew, so many other guys that I can name from the times when he was at Kentucky, from Oklahoma to Washington State to Texas Tech, now to Mississippi State, and literally the ringleader of the air raid offense, and a guy that you would always look forward to seeing doing an interview. If there was ever a microphone put up to his mouth, you knew you weren't going to get the basic coach speech. He was as real as it comes. Some of the funniest bits, from talking about, Halloween candy to Sasquatch to aliens to marriage advice, so on and so forth, to where, he was a guy that I think that the game of football needed, because we see so much cliche coach speech, just talking about, what they got to do on offense and defense, and they don't ever get to ask them like the fun questions that, a fan would really want to know. It's almost like, he was like college football's John Madden in a sense, and he was a great leader in that aspect of being a great personality and being able to relate with fans and relate with, the everyday people of society, to where that's what made people, not even football people, want to tune in and watch and listen to him talk. Same thing with Mike Leach. I mean, I can remember being a couple years ago in college, and me and my buddies would be sitting there just, and watching YouTube videos of, Mike Leach in there in a locker room talking to his team after, I can't remember exactly after what game it was against Texas Tech, and he was ripping their ass, don't get me wrong, but like, it was in a funny way, to where it's like, okay, like, this guy, like, he gets it, and but not only a great personality, not only was he funny, but like I said, literally a genius on the football field. Actually, did you know that he was a lawyer? He graduated law school and then became a football coach. Like, I've heard so many people talk about like how, like, not just smart of a football mind that he was, but how smart of a mind that he was in life and in general, just because, how he took the innovation with the air raid offense, he applied it to every aspect in his life. And so, like we said before, thoughts and prayers to the Leach family, the Mississippi State football program, anybody who was impacted and touched by Coach. It was he was he was one of those guys that, like I said, that the game of football needed. And without him, I just don't think the game's going to be the same. I mean, you got so many coaches now, like still to this day, that just give that, cliche coach speech over and over and over again, to where it was almost like a sigh of relief when you would hear a Mike Leach interview, or you would see him up on the podium at SEC Media Days or Big 12 Media Days, or wherever he was at that point in time. And, starting with and got to coach so many great players, guys even like Michael Crabtree out at Texas Tech. And, hearing the guys that played for him or have been around him talk to him about this week really shows what kind of impact that he made on people's lives. And at the end of the day, if people are talking about the impact that you made on their life, at the end of the day, you've won at life. Nobody's going to remember, or nobody's really going to care about, how many games you won, how many national championships you won, how many bowl games you went to. They're just going to remember, the kind of character you carried yourself with and the impact that you made on the people around you. So it definitely seems that, Mike Leach was definitely a part of that crowd that left a huge impact on the people that came around him. So rest in peace to the Pirate himself. There'll never be another one like him. And at the end of the day, like we said, thoughts and prayers to his family and everybody that was ever impacted and touched around him. Is there ever a moment for you to where, like, let's say like one of your favorite Mike Leach moments? Do you have one?
Yeah. So I'll tell this, and then I'm gonna change locations so you can hear me better. But there was a story I sent you that I wasn't aware of, where he had a player come into his office, and or he called him into his office rather, and he said, hey, you're not going to be playing much. Like, I'd like you to be a student assistant. And he said, the athlete leaves upset, obviously, and comes back the next day and accepts the job. And that went on, well, at the time was Lincoln Riley, who later went on to become, part of that coaching tree. And, three of the five, I saw this yesterday, three of the five Heisman candidates this season were quarterbacks coached from that coaching tree that came out of his, network, which is just absolutely bananas. But the coolest thing, the one I wanted to read, is a story from Lincoln Riley when he was an assistant under him. And he was sitting in his office, and Coach Leach's phone rang. And the story goes, he picked it up and said, "How's it going?" And listened for a second and said, "Where are you calling from?" He kept talking on the phone, and eventually I, being Lincoln Riley, tuned out. Short phone conversations for Coach Leach were an hour. So he was talking at least that. And Coach Riley was hunkered down working on his own stuff. And at some point, the call got dropped. So they must have lost reception. And Coach Leach said, "Can you hear me? Are you there?" Closed his old school flip phone, swung it back open, and redialed. He said, "Hey, sorry, I lost you." And they resumed their conversation for another 30 minutes or so before Coach finally hung up. And after they were done, Coach Riley and Coach Leach started talking. He said, "Hey, Coach, who was that on the phone?" And Coach Leach said, "Oh, it's just a wrong number." So I know that sounded a little bit confusing reading it from a third person, but we'll post this story from Lincoln Riley in the show notes. But that's the biggest testimony to his personality to me. I mean, he had an hour and a half long phone conversation with a misdial or a wrong number. And that seems to me like who he was. I got to meet him one time, just in passing, but just seems like an unbelievably great guy. What we got to see from him from a public standpoint, that's who you want to play for, right? Like, the guy knew the game, was an aggressive play caller, somebody that just seemed to have a lot of fun with what he did for a living, and brought that joy to the aspect of everybody around him. And it's just,
yeah, man. He was just
terrible. He's
like,
going to be missed.
He just, even hearing that story, this is like you're saying, a testimony to that he's a guy that would talk to anybody. And I think that's what made people so comfortable around him, was that, even though he was a big time college football coach, he just seemed like a normal guy, that just thoroughly enjoyed talking with people, whether it be about life, whether it be about football. And, he's just one of those guys, like I said, that, whenever you're around him, I feel like you could always be yourself and not feel like any judgment or, feel like a pressure to be someone that you're not. And so he's definitely going to be missed. My favorite Mike Leach, story slash interview was the video, like I was talking about earlier, where he was, they played somebody when he was at Texas Tech and they lost that game. And he's just on a tantrum in there. And he's talking about how, this team, this year's in particular Texas Tech team felt like they were entitled, felt like that they had already won the games before they'd already stepped out on the field. And he's sitting there and he goes, you think you made that play? No, Michael Crabtree made that play. And then all of a sudden he goes on, and all of a sudden he just goes, F you, F me, and F everybody, just like that right there. And I was like that's like, you can't beat that. Like that's just the kind of guy that he was, man. And I unfortunately I never got to cross paths with him. I never got to play against him. He came to Mississippi State, I believe, a year or two after I graduated here at UK. But it would have been fun, to go up and shake his hand and, tell him that, I not only do I, respect him as a football mind and a football coach, but I respect him more as a human being. And I think that a lot of people can say that, if not everybody. So again, rest in peace to the legend, the pirate himself, Mike Leach. It will definitely be missed.
I gotta leave one more thing that I think you'll appreciate. I saw a tweet today that said Mike Leach once told me to take a girl out for a steak dinner, and if she ate the whole thing, marry her. That's the only time I ever met him. that just seems like the kind of thing he'd say to a stranger.
Is he wrong though?
Shake your hand and leave you with that piece of advice.
He's not wrong.
No, and the guy saw. I read the replies, and it got a lot of attention, and the gentleman who tweeted it followed it up with, for those asking, I was single at the time, still single today, but my perfect steak is still out there somewhere. Fingers crossed. So pretty funny little take on something that I have no doubt was one of the most genuine interactions ever. I can just see him walking up and shaking this guy's hand as a complete stranger, and just dropping that little tidbit for him. And this guy just walks around the rest of his life living by that piece of advice. He hasn't gotten married to he's got like 10 exes that he dated for a year each, and they never finished their steak or whatever. And or he's been on 1,000 first dates buying steak dinners for somebody to see if they're going to finish it. And Mike Leach doesn't even remember that conversation.
It's that seems like the door test from A Bronx Tale. I don't know if you've seen that movie or not. Sonny, one of the main characters in that, he's like, hey, you give her the door test. You get out. And before you get out, you get out, you open the door for her, let her get in the car. But once you get out, you lock your door. And by the time that you come over to your door to get in, if she doesn't reach over and unlock your door, she's not the one. So I could literally sit there and see this guy living by that motto for the rest of his life, like first dates, like you're saying, or, second dates, or, a girl that he's really, really interested in.
He's probably never been on a second date. He's probably gone on a first date.
He's probably like recommending, like the girl probably even wants steak probably. And he's sitting there going, the steak's actually, pretty good. She's probably looking at well, it's a 16-ounce porterhouse. I mean, that's kind of the only one they have. He's like, yeah, I heard it's pretty good. So I might actually start living by that advice, actually. So if I can find me a girl that can eat a full steak. No, I haven't heard that story, but that's a hell of a motto to live by, especially in the dating life. But that's awesome, man. Rest in peace, Coach Leach. Never be another one like him, man. But let's stick into the topic of college football. We have Bowl Mania starting on Friday when this episode drops, December 16th. We got plenty of games to go through. I don't have the spread here, I don't think, but these are just games that I see just going down the line in order. So starting on Friday, December 16th, we start off with Miami of Ohio versus University of Alabama Birmingham at 11:30 a.m. Eastern in the Bahamas Bowl. Yep, and the Bahamas Bowl. Yep.
What?
Oh yeah, it's been. I believe there was probably. I think it was Central Michigan, and correct me if I'm wrong, people, but I think it was Central Michigan and Western Kentucky back like in 2015 or 2014. That was probably one of the like a shootout of a football game that I've ever watched. So, who do you got in in that game, Miami of Ohio versus UAB. Now, given granted, you got to keep this in mind too. UAB's only had their football program back for, I think, going on the second or third year. They got rid of it while I was still in school, and then they brought it back. So they've only been a football team for the past 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you taking in that one?
I'm not going to lie to you. I don't have a clue, but I'll take Miami of Ohio.
Very gritty.
Just because they're a gritty school.
I'll take Miami of
They
Ohio
are.
on that one as
They
well.
are. They're gritty.
Let's move on down to, I already know I'm taking this one. We got the Cure Bowl that same day at 3 p.m. kickoff on ESPN at Exploria Stadium in Orlando, Florida. We got number 25, University of Texas San Antonio, taking on Donk and the boys down at Troy University. Coach Summerall, you know who I'm hammering, man. Troy Trojans all the way. I'm hammering that one, no matter what the line is.
Troy.
Donk and them, they're
Troy.
they're Sun Belt champions. Shout out to Coach Summerall and the boys down there in Troy. That's my dog, man. I never bet against your dogs,
boy.
even no matter who they're playing against. They could be playing Alabama themselves, and I'd be like, okay, Troy's going to win that game. All right, moving on to Saturday, December 17th. Now, this is the one we talked about last week in the episode of the fiasco that's been going down at Louisville and Cincinnati. We have Cincinnati versus Louisville at 11 a.m. kickoff at Fenway Park in Boston in the Fenway Bowl. Who do you see yourself taking in that one? Because, I mean, that one's kind of up in the air. And I haven't read any reports yet on if Satterfield is going to be coaching on either side. Like, he's not.
He's not coaching either side, supposedly.
I mean, at that point,
supposedly.
I mean, we talked about it last week. I mean, you literally lost the locker room in the Louisville side of things, and then you get you talked about it last week of seeing Louisville players quote tweeting the video that Cincinnati put out about his introduction speech, saying, "Oh, I've heard this before," this and that. Like, do you like? There has to be a sense of hesitation almost from some of these Cincinnati players because if I'm a guy that, okay, we brought a new coach in, if I'm in that situation, I look at, coaches can say what they want. Fans can say what they want because everybody's always going to talk shit no matter what. But if you have a player that bought into that program and bought into what that particular head coach is saying, and then they come out and say, yeah, I've heard this before, they were talking about how they didn't even meet together as a team, that he told them over a Zoom call. I got to sit there and be like, hey, I don't know if we can fully trust this guy yet. So, I mean, I think – go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
You want my prediction? Okay, so I'll respond to what you just said first. Complete bullshit. I mean, telling your team over a Zoom call that you left – not only is it a Zoom call, but there's 100 dudes in that room. Like, it's not like you're talking to one dude over Zoom. It's not like you're quitting your job to your boss over your Zoom call. They can't even respond. Like, they can't even talk, right? Like, he just announces to them over. I mean, it's essentially like a pre-recorded video at that point. So it might be worse because it's 100 people and it's that public. Honestly, ridiculous decision to have done it that way. Cincinnati isn't much better for trusting that is a good decision for doing that. Why would you want to hire the guy that's willing to just walk away from the job once you've already been projected to play them in the bowl game, and that is willing to announce it to his former team that way? I don't know. That's to me, it kind of goes back to the whole mantra: if they cheat on you, or they cheat with you, they'll cheat on you. I don't appreciate that from a professional capacity. With that said, Louisville's due, man. They have been in the shitter.
Don't get me wrong. It is L's Down for Life. That's our man Volpe. If you guys want one of these fresh shirts, go over to bluegrassbrothers.com. Check them out on Instagram. We had to throw that in there. Yep. Little plug.
Subtle plug. I'm the biggest, Kentucky over Louisville all day long, but it's bad for the sport of football, of basketball, of everything else if Louisville sucks and Kentucky sucks. You still want the rivalry, and I'll always stand behind that. I hate that. I want to beat them when they're at their best. I want to beat every program when they're at their best. So a part of me was excited for their downfall in a certain way, but this has just gotten out of control between what's going on with Charlie Strong and the football program starting back then, and the Rick Pitino situations, multiple. through what they're dealing with now with basketball. They're like 0-10. And now, they got this situation with the football team. It's just they've just been kicked while they're down so many times, and I think the grit is gonna come through here. Like, I think that locker room is gonna be so pissed off at the way that they've been publicly shamed that they're gonna step up and fight back. And I really think they're gonna kick
Do you
their
think I
teeth
was
in.
frozen right there? No, I wasn't. I was literally just sitting there holding this.
You were.
The whole way. I swear to God, like my eyes are.
No way. It looked like you were frozen.
Actually watering.
It definitely. I definitely thought you were frozen, but I just kept up with the point because Brandon told me it's going to keep rolling. Bro. Good job. Well done.
I agree with
but
you.
Yeah,
I think Louisville's going to win.
I think they're going to come out.
I think that. I think, honest to God, you can turn a bad situation to a great situation because it's now a great situation in Louisville because they finally got their guy. They got Braun back. They've been wanting to bring him in even before Satterfield, but they couldn't get that deal done prior to bringing Satterfield in. I'll tell you what I'm really thankful for, though. I'm really thankful that Deion Sanders took the Colorado job before the Louisville job opened. Because, if he would have came to Louisville, that would have been the worst thing for Kentucky. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that Jeff Brom is not that kind of same type of caliber of coach because he's proven year after year after year up there in Purdue and everywhere else he's been. The guy's a winner. He was a winner there as a player at Louisville. He seems like he is very excited to be home. I think it's great for the rivalry. I think it's great that you got a guy like Brom in there. To be quite honest with you, I'm a big Brom fan just because of what his pregame interview when he was in the XFL. He took a really bad hit the week before he played in this game, and everybody was really surprised that he was coming out to even play that game. And the guy was sideline interviewer came up to him and was like, Jeff, you took a pretty substantial hit last week. How are you able to play in this game? And it was the most football guy answer of all time. He goes, well, let me answer that question by asking you two questions. One, is this or is this not the XFL? And two, do I or do not currently have a pulse? Let's play football. I was like, oh shit! Not can I walk, but do I currently have a pulse? Yes, I do. Let's play football. I was like, that's football guy. That's the kind of guy that you want leading your team. You want that mental toughness. Awesome. You want that edge about you. You want that confidence in that. No matter what your body may be going through, no matter where you may be mentally, just go out there, do your job. And I think that Louisville wins this game, not by just a little. I think Louisville wins this game by much. But let's move on down here to the Celebration Bowl in Atlanta. Yep. We got Jackson State versus NC Central. I'm going to take Jackson State. Okay. Let's go to the Las Vegas Bowl in obviously Las Vegas, Nevada. We got number 14, Oregon State taking on unranked Florida. Who do you got in that one?
Yeah, Oregon State's a 10.5 point favorite in that game. Admittedly, don't know much at all about them, but we did see Florida several times, through watching SEC play. Not really impressed by much that they got going on.
Oregon State as well.
I'll take Oregon State.
Let's go on down to the LA Bowl in Inglewood, California. Inglewood always up to no good. We have Washington State.
I'm not sure who's playing in that. Which one is that?
Fresno game is State. That? Two unranked teams, 3:30 kickoff on ABC. Give me Fresno State. 3:30 p.m.
What time's the game?
Obviously, Pacific Standard Time. So, Washington State.
Fresno and who?
Former school of Mike Leach. No, this game is on Friday? Saturday. All these games I'm listing right now are Saturday.
Sorry to put you on the spot. Okay, I'll take the opposition. I'll bet against you here.
I'll tell you what.
I think we've agreed on every other line, here. So I don't know anything.
We're going to tally up the overall wins and losses between these picks. And if I lose, I have to get a haircut.
Got it.
We can do it on the show.
Oh, really? Can we do it on the show?
All right, I got it. All right, so
deal.
After
done deal. I hate that you blindsided me with this, so I would have taken a much
Well,
more
that's what makes
in-depth
it better
look at
though,
these
because they're
teams I
both
don't
going in
know.
blind. And if you lose,
all right, I'll give
and
you.
if you
So you're taking
lose,
Fresno. I'll take. That's fine. That's fine.
Well, I'm saying if you do
I don't
lose, Brandon, help me out here. What should we make Todd do?
Shut up.
Take a wild guess of what he said.
What did he say?
Take a wild. Yeah, it's
Show up on time.
I tell you what, if I gotta get a haircut, your hair is already pretty short. You got to be clean shaved for a month straight. Clean shave for a month straight.
Deal.
All right, cool. We'll get together after this recording
Deal.
and we'll actually tally up like who we got,
All right.
and so we know who we got going into this. All right, sticking on Saturday's
Let's do
games,
it.
we have the Landing Tree Bowl down in Mobile, Alabama. We have Rice versus Southern Miss. Go ahead and give me Southern Miss in that, just because that's the home of the sticky finger bandit himself, Brett Favre. And I think Mississippi has a lot to play for right now. So give me Mississippi.
No kidding. I'll take Southern Miss as well. My sister that's her alma mater. She played soccer down there.
All right,
in
sticking on the
Hattiesburg.
Saturday games as well, we have the New Mexico Bowl in Albuquerque, New Mexico, 7:30 p.m. kickoff on ABC. We have Southern Methodist University versus Brigham Young. Give me Southern Methodist in that one, just because they're a Texas school. I know BYU is historically a good football program, but I'm going to go with the Ponies in this one. Give me SMU. Okay. Frisco Bowl in Frisco, Texas.
Because we have to have some disparagement, disagreement. Disparagement? Is that the right word,
Yeah,
Brandon?
he's in the other room, but yeah. All right, moving on down to the Frisco Bowl. We got Boise State in North Texas, 9:15 kickoff. Here's a great thing about it, Todd. We have football on all the time up until the end of the college football playoff, which I'm going to be stoked for. Like I said, we have Boise State versus North Texas and Frisco, Texas. Mm-hmm. Give me Boise State. Okay. Now,
I'll take North
moving
Texas.
on down to Monday, December 19th, we have the Myrtle Beach Bowl in the always beautiful Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, home of every redneck that ever wants to take a vacation. Looks like they're going down there to sit in that Dewey Lake water. Going to be really muddy. None of you probably know what I'm talking about there. But we have Marshall versus UConn. Give me Marshall because we are Marshall, and my old high school football coach played at Marshall, plus Randy Moss and all those guys. They have a stellar program, a lot of track record there. So give me Marshall over UConn. That's the only games.
I'm going Marshall
only game
too.
on that Monday. Moving down to Tuesday, we have the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. We have Eastern Michigan out of the MAC. Then we have San Jose State, 3:30 kickoff in Boise, Idaho. I'm going to take Eastern Michigan in this one just because I feel like they're a gritty team. Now we move on down to the Boca Raton Bowl in Boca Raton, Florida. Liberty.
Now that one I would love to go to.
Liberty versus Toledo. Obviously, Liberty without head coach Hugh Freeze taking the job at Auburn. I'm gonna let you pick this one first.
He still won't coach that game, right? I'll take Liberty. There's a reason they hired him.
Give me Toodly-doo. I'll take Toledo. Funny side story real quick. We call it Toodly-doo because you'd always have to drive through Toledo to get to it was either Cleveland or – no, it was Detroit. We were going to Detroit for a Browns game, me and my family. And my younger cousin, he was like – yeah.
The Browns. You're a Browns fan?
But
no.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. I was waiting on that guy to just vomit everywhere over. Yeah.
We might have to insert that.
Give me Toledo. Toodly-doo. Like I said,
over to Brandon.
I think they'll win that one. Moving on down to Wednesday, we got the New Orleans Bowl. This ought to be a good one. We got South Alabama versus Western Kentucky. I'm going to stay within the Kentucky teams. Give me Western in that one. What are your thoughts on it? Okay.
Western.
No.
Can't
Now
go
we've
against
moved
the
on down to
state, baby.
Thursday, December 22nd, the Armed Forces Bowl. Baylor versus Air Force. Give me Baylor. Independence Bowl, Houston versus
Baylor.
Louisiana. Give me H-Town in that one. We
Houston.
have Wake Forest versus Missouri. Give me Missouri in that one. Stick with the SEC. I want the SEC to win that one. Give me the.
Yeah, I want to go again. I want to go against you, but yeah.
All right, now moving on to Saturday,
gotta go
Christmas
SEC.
Eve, December 24th, the Hawaii Bowl between Middle Tennessee State, San Diego State. By the way, the Middle Tennessee State area down there in what's that place called? Murfreesboro. Beautiful turkey hunting, unbelievable turkey hunting. So I'm gonna go with NTSU in that one just because of the turkey hunting aspect. San Diego State.
Who's the other? MTSU and who?
All right, we got the Quick Lane Bowl on
MTSU.
Monday, December 26th. Unfortunately, there is no Christmas games in the college football, but we do have NFL games on Christmas.
And NBA.
LeBron's
There should be some
always
good
playing.
NBA games on Christmas
Are the Lakers
this year,
playing LeBron? It seems like LeBron always plays on Christmas.
I don't know, but the Lakers are not very good.
Yeah, well.
I think they're like 11-17 or something. They got mollywopped by Boston last night.
All right, back to football. Quick Lane Bowl. We have Bowling Green, New Mexico State. Give me Bowling Green in that one. Yep. Okay.
Bowling Green.
Buffalo versus Georgia Southern. Give me Georgia Southern in that one. First Responder Bowl.
Georgia Southern.
Memphis versus Utah State. I'm going to go with Memphis in that one.
I have
Birmingham
no idea. I'll
Bowl,
take Utah
Coastal
State.
Carolina versus East Carolina. Uh-oh, little in-state battle.
East Carolina.
Yeah, I'm going to go with East Carolina, too. I'm going to go with Eastern Carolina. All right, Guaranteed Rate Bowl, Oklahoma State versus Wisconsin. Give me, one of the Wisconsin quarterbacks just transferred to UK. Oklahoma State, yada, yada. Give me Oklahoma State in that one. All right, Military Bowl.
I'll take Oklahoma State
Duke
too.
versus UCF. Who you got? I'm going to take Duke.
UCF.
All right, the Liberty Bowl down in Memphis, Tennessee. Arkansas versus Kansas. Now, Kansas being one of the bigger surprises in college football this year. Arkansas with Sam Pittman and crew down there. I'm going to take Arkansas on that one, though. Like I said, I'm going to stick with the SEC. I just think that they have too much for Kansas to handle. So, what's your okay? Holiday Bowl, Oregon
Arkansas
versus North Carolina. Yeah, I'll probably take Oregon in that one too. Texas Bowl, Texas.
Oregon into the season ranked still, right? Weren't they like 14th
Texas
or 15th?
Bowl, we got Texas Tech versus Ole Miss. Go ahead and give me Lane Train and the boys down there in Oxford. I'll take Ole Miss in that one. Pinstripe Bowl, we have Minnesota versus Syracuse. I'm going to have to row the boat on this one. Give me Minnesota. Now, think about it, Todd. This is football, not basketball.
Syracuse. I know. That's what I.
We already do.
But we need
we got like 4.
We need some discrepancies.
All right, we got.
Okay, I'll roll with
Cheez-It Bowl. By the way, that'd be probably one of the coolest bowl gifts ever if you got like a year supply of Cheez-Its. That'd be fucking awesome. No, I'm just saying it should be one of them, though. We have number 13, Florida State versus Oklahoma, 5:30 kickoff at the Camping World Stadium in Orlando. Home field advantage, not have to travel that far. Give me Florida State. Okay, you got Florida State. Moving on down to the Alamo Bowl at San Antonio, Texas. We got number 12, Washington versus number 20, Texas. It's horns down for life, but I got to go Texas in that one, just because of they're not having to leave the state. Give me the Duke's Mayo Bowl, NC State versus Maryland. Maryland known for crab cakes and football. Give me Maryland.
I'll
Yep,
take
number
Maryland
23.
too. NC
Number
State, I think,
23.
is ranked too, though.
The
I
Sun
just saw that
Bowl,
one,
number
23rd.
18.
Yeah, but Maryland,
They're 23rd.
Maryland's had a
Sun
Go
Bowl,
ahead.
number 18 UCLA versus Pitt in El Paso, Texas. You know what's on the other side of El Paso, Texas, Todd? What?
Yeah.
What's on the other side of it?
Why? The other side, as in down.
What
Okay, yeah.
city is it?
Why?
We've mentioned it on here 1,000 times. That's just Juarez.
I was going to say Mexico.
By the way, I hope people know that I'm only talking about this because if you haven't seen the movie Sicario, go watch it. It's it is an unbelievable movie. Give me UCLA. Give me UCLA in that one. All right, Gator
Yeah, I'm
Bowl,
taking UCLA
number 19
too.
South Carolina versus number 21 Notre Dame. Give me South Carolina in that one, just because of I despise Notre Dame. I cannot stand them.
Yeah, this game
I just
seems
cannot
like a
stand
toss
Notre
up,
Dame.
but I'll take South
All
Carolina.
right, we got the Arizona Bowl.
And let South
Beamer's
Carolina
got him
starts
rolling,
playing
dude.
that.
I'm telling you, he's building a program down there. Well, do not be surprised.
Yeah, but they start playing. I don't know if they play, if they can make that sound at the bowl game. But if they can play that Gamecock sound, like that'll tear up an opposition right there. That's the best thing South Carolina and Mississippi State's got going for them.
I still got PTSD from those damn cowbells. Arizona Bowl, Ohio U versus Wyoming. Two gritty football teams, two gritty football programs. Give me Ohio U, the boys out of Athens. All right, now we're moving down to our premier college football bowl games. We have the Orange Bowl, number 6 Tennessee versus number 7 Clemson.
As to who you're taking.
Give me them boys up on Old Rocky. Give me them boys up on Old Rocky Top. I think Tennessee wins this one.
You think they'll play? You think they'll play for? I mean, are they going to be able to?
Here's the thing: they can perform without him, but you're still playing a lot. I understand that people they were expected to play for the SEC championship. A lot of people expect them to play for the national championship, but still, at the end of the day, this is one of the best years of Tennessee football that they've seen in close to almost 10 years when Phil Fulmer was there. So there's still a lot to play for. And I think that, with a win like this in the Premier Bowl game, that helps Josh Heupel in recruiting, which ultimately will help them get back to that number 1 spot if they continue to play that they are. So give me Tennessee in that one. All right, we got the Fiesta Bowl.
I'll take Tennessee.
College football playoff semifinal, number 2 Michigan versus number 3 TCU.
I'm taking Michigan.
Yep, I'm going to take Michigan in that one as well. All right, Peach Bowl.
I've been a little bit of a TCU hater, but
I just don't believe in TCU.
I'm going to take Michigan. I'm still going to take Michigan.
All right, Peach Bowl, Georgia, Ohio State. Give me the Dogs. So we'll have so you're saying we're going to have a Georgia Michigan national championship, and that's going to be an absolute bloodbath.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now we get down to the game
that
everybody has been looking forward to, the Music City Bowl between Iowa and Kentucky. No Will Levis, no Chris Rodriguez. I think it's going to be a defensive battle. I really do. Obviously, Iowa's got, a chip on their shoulder coming in this game because of what happened last year down in Orlando. I'm still blown away that we're still playing back-to-back years. I've really never heard of that unless it's in a BCS format or a college football national championship.
That's
format.
weird.
I've never heard of that, but are we going? All right. Well, we're
going.
We can't do that.
You need to get the RV handled, but we're going.
I've already talked to him about it. Can't do it.
Why not?
All right, cool.
Well,
at the end of the day,
all right. Well, we're still going.
It's a 3-hour drive.
I'll send you the Airbnb options after this. I'll send you the Airbnb options after this.
We'll just go invade somebody's tailgate. Who cares? We'll just go to a bar. We'll just go to. I tell you what, we can just go to a bar.
All right. Who are you taking? That's fine
Take the
too.
Cats, dude. I've never want to bet against
Who
the
you
Cats.
taking? I'm going to take the Cats. I do. We're going to be a little hobbled without our starting quarterback and without Chris. But I think that this is a gritty team. On top of all that, the entire arena or stadium, I should say, will be in blue. That is our second home, and
All right, Sugar Bowl, number
take
5,
the Cats.
Alabama versus number 9, Kansas State. I believe Alabama is probably one of the more pissed off teams in the nation. And when they play pissed off, it's usually not good for the opposition. So give me Nick Saban and the Tide by a bunch in that one. Yep. All right, moving down, we have we have another bowl game on Monday, January 2nd, Mississippi State versus Illinois. Obviously, with the unfortunate recent passing of Mike Leach, there's going to be a lot of emotion in that game. They're going to be playing for in his memory, and a lot of aspects into that. So, give me Mississippi State by 1 billion in that one.
Illinois actually opened as a favorite. I saw that, checked it yesterday when all this news was breaking. I think that line will shift.
All right, moving down to the Citrus Bowl. Number 17, State. LSU, Matt House in the defense, and old Brian Kelly and his family taking on Purdue. I'm going to take LSU. Yep. Okay. Cotton Bowl Classic. Number 10, USC versus number 16, Tulane. Give me Caleb Williams and the Heisman Trophy winner and USC and Lincoln Riley going on there and win by maybe not 1 billion, but maybe 1 million. All right,
yeah,
the last one rolling up.
USC, I'm sorry.
The Rose Bowl, number 8 Utah versus number 11 Penn State. Based upon that Pac-12 championship game that me and you watched and how hard hitting that Utah defense was, I'm going to take Utah on that one just because those dudes are savages on that defense side of football.
Yeah. I like Utah a lot, actually.
All right, well, that wraps up our bowl picks for this week. We're running a little long because Brooke's interview is probably about 25 to 30 minutes. We will cut to that right here in just a second, but that's how we'll wrap this up. We appreciate you guys tuning in, listening to us two dumbasses talk. It's been fun so far. Be a friend. Tell a friend. First off, what's your favorite Christmas song of all time? Go. That got canceled.
Maybe It's Cold Outside.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious.
Very, very
Which
funny
is hilarious.
of what we choose
Absolutely
to not
hilarious.
be and pissed off about in this world nowadays. But that's another conversation for another time. We'll keep it at that.
Yeah.
Mine, probably, I would probably say Pretty Paper, the Cody Johnson version. Now, I know it's a Willie Nelson song,
There you
but
go.
I'm going to have to go with the Cody Johnson version of that. So those are our two favorite Christmas songs. We didn't have to do a draft. Thank you guys for watching. Please enjoy this interview with let me do that again. Brandon, make sure you cut this part. Thank you guys for tuning in. Be a friend. Tell a friend about the podcast. We'll see you guys next week. Enjoy this week's interview with Brooke Kromer as we talk a little bit of NFL news. We got OBJ. We talk Aaron Rodgers. We talk the playoff situation. We talk Tom Brady and the Bucs. Anything and everything in the NFL. Always great talking to Brooke. So, Todd, go back to trying to get us to deal with the mob. Don't make it too obvious to where we have to start paying commission for everything that we do because we don't want to get in too deep with those guys. Okay.
Got you.
All right, enjoy this interview with Brooke, and that's how we'll wrap it up. We'll see you guys next week on Fully Unscripted. Joining me now from the Draft Network. I have not talked to her on an interview since she interviewed me when I was in college, so it's always nice to talk to her. She's an so what did you say? You're an NFL insider. You're an NFL insider to our podcast because you're the first person to talk about the NFL. We've had different college football analysts come on and talk college football with us, but you're the first person to come on and talk to us about the NFL. None other than from the Draft Network, Miss Brooke Kromer. Brooke, thank you for joining us today for talk a little bit about the NFL. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me. Loving the studio. You guys are looking good over there.
Hey, we're trying to. We got a couple things to move around here to try to make it look more of a sports appealing. If you say, kind of looks like more of a like a country and western studio where guys come in and like record, music and whatnot. But it's pretty comfy, and we're thankful for the people that allow us to come in here and do this. But Thanks again for joining us. I know we got a lot to talk about with the NFL. Obviously, you're sporting your Buffalo Bills and Bills Mafia up there. They've actually been on quite of a tear this year, 10-3, leading in the division. What are some of the things that you've seen in these last couple weeks that could perpetuate the Bills to making a playoff run come here pretty soon?
Honestly, everyone was so nervous when Von Miller went down, and it was seeming like it was going to be the end of the world. But to be honest, the defense was looking really good still. And he's obviously clearly a big deal and a big weapon to have out there. But I don't think that it's going to hurt us that much or as much as people thought. So that's definitely something to watch. We got Matt Milano out there and Jordan Poyer and all these guys in the backfield that are absolutely crushing it. And Milano being a name that kind of wasn't on people's radar and now it's really popping off, and definitely one of my favorites on the team. So the defense, I think, is going to be fine. And then we got Josh Allen. So literally no problems in the world.
No,
And Dawson Knox has been stepping up to the plate, and we've got some guys that are really showing up when they're needed to, which has been awesome. And I think we spread the ball out. We get it to everyone. Josh Allen could run it every single play, and I'd be completely fine with that. He's like an absolute star, probably one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen play. I would say next to Drew Brees, he's definitely one of my favorites to watch. So Josh Allen's the only one now, but they're doing all right. I'm banking that they are still going to be in the Super Bowl at the end of this season.
Well, I would say that Pat Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs may have something to say about that, like last year, which was probably the best playoff game in the history of the National Football League. So I'm hoping we get to see a rematch like that. To be quite honest with you, seeing, big brains out there be able to, see what's going on the field. I mean, obviously last year, Kelsey and Mahomes had that situation where Travis saw something that, they might have been playing something a little bit different. He came up to Mahomes and said, hey, if they play this like this again, I'm just going to run a straight seam, just throw it down, and it's going to be just fine. But, yeah, getting back to Josh Allen, it's always exciting to watch him play. But I would say as a GM or the head coach of the Bills, they might not want him to run as much as he does, especially of how he runs. I mean, he's not just trying to slide. He's trying to either run you over. He's trying to hurdle you. He's just trying to run through your face. And you've never seen that really out of a quarterback. So, besides his arm talent, obviously, like you said, what he does with his legs is just nothing short of spectacular. And obviously, you got guys out there on the perimeter like Stephon Diggs who can make plays for him. It just seems like an all-around systems all go for that Bills offense. Transitioning over to a guy that's made some headlines here I guess throughout this whole season. He's kind of taking a sweet time about it. What is the latest that you've heard on Odell Beckham Jr. and some of the teams that he's visiting or planning on visiting?
I think the scariest thing that we have seen is the not so sure about it after the medical papers came out in Dallas. So that's kind of scary to me. I don't know if Dallas doesn't want him after he did his physical and everything. It's not looking so good. As soon as they got T.Y. Hilton, I was like, all right, he's gone. Then we picked up Cole Beasley. It's like, all right, no, I honestly don't think he's going to play this season. Maybe not even at the beginning of the season. It's sounding like that he might not even be back by then. So I'm not going to be surprised if OBJ just sits the rest of the season as well as not on any roster at this point. But then it kind of brings me back to watching his Instagram and his Twitter and everything. Like, what was he doing all of this entire season? Like, was he training as hard as he could to get back? Because we have seen players that have gotten back from this injury a lot faster. So kind of is putting into perspective maybe his work ethic in a way. I don't know. I don't know him that well personally, so not sure how he is off the field in that aspect. But it definitely puts into perspective, I would say, of maybe the type of player he is and maybe how long he has in this season or in this league. But I hope he comes back. I hope he comes to my Bills. That would be fabulous. Also, I heard that he wants some stability. So sounding like he kind of wants more of a 2-year deal or something, where I don't think that the Bills would realistically give that to him. I think they would only want him for the season. So I'm not banking on him coming to the Bills anytime soon. Maybe the Cowboys, I could see them wanting him a lot more clearly. They made a whole freaking campaign for him. But yeah, I think he's out of the question for the Bills this season for sure.
Yeah, it seemed like the Dallas was going to be the move, obviously, after, hanging out with Micah Parsons and CeeDee Lamb there at the Mavs game a couple weeks ago. Has there been any news of what they didn't like of what they saw in his physical, or is it just broad perspective of no, we just don't like what we see?
Everything I've seen, it's the fear that he's not even ready to play and might not even be ready to play by the Super Bowl. So then why are you picking him up? Because clearly that's the only reason anybody would want him right now. I mean, he's got to come in and learn a whole playbook, which, wide receiver, he could probably come in pretty quick and figure it out. But I don't know if he's ready. I think he's still pretty injured, which is pretty scary and kind of a bummer because he could have been something and he could have had another Super Bowl ring on his finger by the end of this season. But yeah, it's sounding like he's just not healthy enough to be out there again. So really interesting on that end.
Yeah, I saw where he was talking. I can't remember what podcast it was. It might have been one with LeBron James a couple weeks ago, where he was just talking about, it was like he's talking about there's no reason for me to play, during a regular season. And so I'm sitting there thinking, how do you call yourself a teammate? If you're only going to say, I'm only going to show up in the playoffs, when it actually matters, when, weeks 1 through 18 is obviously what gets you to the playoffs. So, he is that kind of special type of player. You saw what he did last year with the Rams coming in, on such short notice. And like you said, being a wide receiver and, the way NFL play calls are being put out, especially in that McVay style of offense, I'm sure it was easy for him to pick it up. But, with the chemistry and everything, he had to get dialed down with Matthew Stafford, I just feel like, if you try to wait too long in the season to try to get acclimated with a new quarterback, with a new system, with a new offensive coordinator, I just don't think that there's going to be enough chemistry there to try to make a push for a Super Bowl. So hopefully, he gets healthy. Hopefully he gets back to where he's making plays again. And, we may not, like you said, we may not see him this year, but, hopefully he gets back on the field because, he's still one of the top wide receivers, in the league. So it's obviously fun to watch him play. Moving on to a big surprise. Now, I actually want to ask you this question. What do you think has been more surprising? Do you think it's been more surprising to see the Bucks still be at 6-7, but still be at the top of the NFC South? Or is it more of a surprise that you're seeing the Lions and the Vikings being competitive and being at the top of the NFC North this year? Because to be quite honest with you, if you were to ask me again, if you were to ask me to say, hey, who is going to be the top running dog in NFC North, I obviously would have said this Mr. Discount Double Check himself, Aaron Rodgers, and the Green Bay Packers. So it seems like MCDC has those boys fired up. Obviously, getting a big win over the Vikings this past weekend. So, what do you think has been more surprising in that aspect?
Honestly, I would say, the Vikings and the Lions having a run for it is pretty crazy. The Lions, especially because we had Jared Goff. We know how Jared Goff plays. He was overthrowing and underthrowing at 5 yards on every single play. It was never consistent. It was never quite accurate, to be honest. So very shocking what they've been able to do. And then with a coach like Dan Campbell, who, to be honest, when he got into this league, I was not expecting him to last or into being a head coach in the league. I was not expecting him to be there very long. He's a very, very different coach than what we see out there on a typical Sunday. And very aggressive in a way, saying that he was going to bite off some kneecaps. So it was just completely different. And to see that,
kneecaps.
it's pretty, it's impressive, honestly, for a coach that I didn't expect much from and a quarterback that I didn't expect much from to be going where they are is pretty great. And then the fall of Aaron Rodgers is very interesting to me. I don't know. I can't figure out what is going on with Aaron Rodgers, but I think he's getting into the part of the season where he just starts coming out with his little relaxed statements and he wants everyone to chill a bit because it's Aaron Rodgers. I'm never counting Aaron Rodgers out of a season. So it's going to be interesting watching that division, though.
Yeah, maybe he needs another trip to South America. Maybe drink some more of that ayahuasca to kind of reset his mind and going in to the last push of the season. But yeah, I have a couple friends that actually play for the Lions. And every time I've got a chance to talk to him, there's he's like a position coach in college. You always got that one, linebackers coach or offensive line coach that's just, kind of more out there than the normal coach. And you see that in the league. And, it's kind of refreshing, to a guy like me, because like if I were to put myself in that kind of position, like that's the kind of guy I would want to play for, because he's gritty, he's hard nosed, doesn't really care what people think about him even when he talks about biting kneecaps off in press conferences and different things like that. I think that just adds the more of an exciting element to what he's brought to Detroit. And, it just seems like finally that they're not the same old Lions that you've seen, in recent years. So for me, it's very, almost exciting, to see, the Detroit Lions being able to play the way they have this season and be able to get on the same page. And like you're saying, with a guy like Jared Goff, who, didn't have much success in LA, come into a new system there in Detroit, learn that chemistry with his offense and his offensive line and everybody in between, and be able to go out there and make plays like they have. So, I could see a push coming from Detroit, obviously taking a big win against Minnesota this past weekend. So even if they don't win the division, I could still maybe see them making a run in the wild card. And it's all about at the end of the day, it's all about who's hot going into the playoffs, as you know. So
Right.
hopefully they make a push, and hopefully some more exciting stuff to come out of Detroit. But looking at Tom Brady and the Bucs, I mean, it just seems like, and obviously people can talk about with getting divorced and and all this stuff going on in his life. They've re-signed the majority of their team, and even a guy like Mike Evans, who's taken a pay cut, to even keep some of these guys on this team. And to be quite honest with you, when I look at their defense, obviously my boy Mike Edwards back there cleaning things up in the secondary. I think that Devin White and Levante David are the two best inside linebacker duos in the NFL. And then you got a guy that's you got all those guys across the defensive line. Then obviously you got Tom Brady, playoff Lenny, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, so many players, Julio Jones now. I mean, it seems like there's so many playmakers out there to where it's almost like maybe they have too many playmakers, if that makes sense to you. I'm trying to make sense of it. So what do you think about the Bucs this year? And do you still see them being able to win the division, even at a 6-7 record going into this week?
This is so ironic, because I was literally sitting and thinking about this today. It's like, what is going on with this team? Because it's still Tom Brady. Like, Tom Brady hasn't changed, other than maybe his mental state is a little bit different this year. He's going through a ton. I mean, talk about adversity. This guy's been through it. And then you have a new head coach there. I mean, it's a complete different change. Like, even though he was already there, even though Todd was there, it's now he's in charge. Now he's taking on this whole new role. Maybe he wasn't ready for it. Who knows? I think the biggest difference is their offensive line, because you look at that line and barely anybody is out there. My guy, Ryan Jensen, he makes a huge difference. I think also that was a big reason why Tom Brady came back this season, is because he knew he was going to be protected. He had his linemen out there. Ryan Jensen was going to be there. I mean, all these guys that are now not out there. You've got second string. I'm pretty sure most of the line, if not all the line, is second string at this point. So that's a huge problem when you're the quarterback and you're older and you're all of a sudden thinking about that guy that's coming in your blind side and all of these things that are, I mean, for Tom Brady, he's always had that part down. He's always been protected. And now he's thinking about a lot more things while he's trying to get rid of that ball, while also trying to figure out where his best target is. So offensive line, you know me, I love my guys in the trenches. So it's not a big old deal when you don't have those guys out there. Then I really do think that's a huge reason why he came back as well. Now he might not be thinking about coming back anymore.
No, I would say after this year, he's probably looking at it like, well, if we don't win a Super Bowl, guys, I'm probably just going to hang it up, and I'll probably take that $100 million contract from CBS or Fox or whoever ones that offered him, and be like, you know what? I've put my body through enough. I've obviously, put my mental state through enough. I think I'm just going to be comfortable for the rest of my life and not have to wake up, absolutely killing in pain, and just sit in the studio and sit in the booth and call those games. I'm actually looking really forward to hearing Tom Brady call games. I mean, you got a guy like Tony Romo who was in the booth, And to be quite honest with you, every time Tony Romo's, I don't care what game it is. It could be the worst game of the week. It could be a Thursday night game with Russell Wilson back there, who's obviously maybe forgotten how to play football. But if you got Tony Romo back there calling that game, I'm locked in, because he is literally, it's almost like he's watching film and he's literally calling out plays, right before the snap. And so I could obviously see Tom Brady moving in that kind of role and having that same kind of impact. Speaking of Russell Wilson, has he forgotten how to play football?
I'm thinking so. I don't where was this? I did not expect him to come out and playing like this. I mean, coaching staff struggling as well, which I didn't expect because of the level of coaches that they were getting. I mean, they took a lot from that Rams Super Bowl coaching staff as well. And then now you have a Russell Wilson, you have strong coaches, Nathaniel Hackett's trying to figure it out, but you have Russell Wilson. He's been there. He's a veteran quarterback. He's been in the biggest stage and done it. So it's very shocking to me. That is honestly probably one of the biggest shocks of the season, clearly for the NFL office as well, because they scheduled them in every single primetime game. And we've had to sit through a lot of terrible games this season. But I think that is probably one of the biggest shocks of the season is Russell Wilson. Where did his skill go? I have no idea, but yeah, that's a big shock. And I hope he gets it back. I don't know if he will. It doesn't look like it. I also didn't realize how much hate there is for Russell Wilson, in the football NFL world. They all just make fun of him now. Everything they do that he does, they think is so cringy. And I'm like, I had no idea this was even there. But I guess when you start to not have the success and not have the skills showing, then all of a sudden all the haters come out. But it's been very interesting this season for him.
Yeah, I could see him getting a lot of hate when you're coming out of the locker room for practice and you're practicing giving guys high fives. I could see how that could give some people some fuel to make some pretty cool memes out of. But it obviously seems almost like that. It really seemed, and then obviously the Broncos country, let's ride,
Let's ride.
And obviously you see that everywhere on the internet, especially on Twitter. But it seems like almost like in Space Jam when the Monstars came back and literally just took the talent out of all those NBA players. It seems like the Monstars have come back and just sucked Russell Wilson's talent out. I mean, there's been videos that you've seen of them coming into the locker room at halftime and, guys not even wanting to shake his hand. I mean, if you're a starting NFL quarterback and you demand the huddle, if you're losing the locker room like that, obviously if your guys on the field don't believe in you, then obviously there's something wrong. And like you're saying, you got a star-studded coaching staff with Nathaniel Hackett, who's been in Green Bay for the last couple of years, and you've seen what they've done with Aaron Rodgers and that offense. But obviously, looking with the Packers now, losing a guy like Devontae Adams going to Las Vegas, new guys coming in, Aaron Rodgers having to, get acclimated and more chemistry with those guys. With a guy like Nathaniel Hackett and with a star-studded veteran quarterback like Russell Wilson, you would expect at least a little bit more of what we've been seeing this past year. So I'm hoping, and like you're saying, it really is probably one of the more surprising things we've seen this season. To be quite honest with you, though, I would say the most surprising thing that I've seen this season is that the NFC East is probably one of the best divisions to watch football. I mean, because every single time that they would have a primetime game on 4:30, or they would have the Sunday night game or the Monday night game, it'd be, oh God, we got the Cowboys and Eagles, or oh God, we got the Giants and the Commanders. But it seems like now, I mean, they've been probably one of the more exciting divisions to watch this season. And to be quite honest with you, I'm here for it. I think, to be quite honest, when you have a team like Philadelphia, when you have a team like Dallas, who has those kind of star-studded players like Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Ezekiel Elliott, then you look at Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts and Kelsey up there in front. To be quite honest with you, have you seen some of Kelsey's fits when he comes in to those games with the weight belt? I think they actually have an offensive line Christmas album coming out here pretty soon. I'm pretty sure.
No, Lane Johnson on that is my favorite thing ever. When they sent it in my group chat for work, and I was like, no, I can't believe this. Like, the only thing that would be better than this song is watching them sing it. Then I get the video immediately after, and I about cried on the floor laughing. This is like the best thing to ever happen to football, I swear. Big guys singing. It's all I
And
want from now on.
Kelsey was a ringleader in that. I mean, the guy's
Yes.
always been entertaining. And when I first saw that, I was like, there's no way those guys are actually singing that, because they actually sound pretty damn good. Like, they're not too bad.
Like, where did this all come from? I'm here for it. I love it. I think we should get like all the offensive linemen in the league together and just have like a whole, like every team can have a different song and an album and just put it out. Like the linemen of the NFL Christmas carols.
Now that you say that, that would probably sell. I'm sitting here thinking, like in marketing spaces, like that would probably sell. You get all the big boys up there, get some behind the scenes of them actually making the music, maybe even put like some little musical cartoons with it and different things like that. I think that'd actually sell pretty well.
Yeah, we need music videos for that for sure.
Absolutely. But looking into that division, obviously, the Commanders are in third. You got Philadelphia and Dallas up at the top. Who do you think, comes out on top of that division? And do you see maybe one of those teams making a push in the wild card?
I'm thinking the Eagles are going to come out on top. I don't know how they don't. At this point, they are playing incredibly complete football, which is all you can hope for, really. But then the Cowboys are going to make their push. I don't think that you can count them out at all. So I think that both of those teams are going to be menaces in the playoffs. And honestly, that's pretty terrifying. But I'm glad the Bills are on the other side so that maybe we could just face off with one of them in the Super Bowl, because I would not want to play them in playoffs. That is for sure. They're both complete teams. I mean, they're scary.
Yeah, they are. It's always just fun to watch them play every single Sunday, because you know exactly what type of football you're going to see. You're going to see smash mouth football. You're going to see a guy like Jalen Hurts who can make plays with his legs. He can obviously make plays in the air. And you look over at Dallas and you can see Ezekiel Elliott running. You can see CeeDee Lamb going over the top. And you got a guy like Micah Parsons who really, you can move anywhere across that defensive board. You could put him in the middle. You could put him on the edge. Hell, if you wanted to, you could put him in a 3-tech, and I'm sure the guy would still make plays. So that's obviously a team. Both of those teams are obviously teams I'd definitely watch out for making a push for that Super Bowl. And so we'll see. But I appreciate you coming on here for us for these couple minutes. One more question, actually 2 more questions I got for you, then we'll wrap it up. Obviously, I know you're going to say the Bills, but who do you see yourself seeing in the Super Bowl this year, and who do you see yourself winning the MVP?
I see the Bills versus the Eagles. I think it is a no-brainer. I think we've seen it from the beginning of the season. Injuries have not completely killed either of the teams, and we'll pray that that works out for us in the playoffs, because God knows how the injuries can kill a team real quick. MVP, it's going to be my guy, Josh Allen. He is so good. I am so thankful for him every single day. I love that man. Like, oh my God, I think that was probably one of the best things that happened to the NFL. So I'm going with them. I'm sticking with my guys.
Awesome. Well, I can't disagree with you there. I think that the Bills come out on top in the AFC. It's hard telling who can make a push in the NFC. Obviously, like you said, the Eagles there at the top. I could definitely see the Cowboys making a push. And then who knows? I mean, 45-year-old Tom Brady still got some magic in him. And if you're sitting at the top of the division at 6-7 right now, who knows what you can make going into the playoffs. Hopefully they get some guys back health-wise and be able to push some things. So, but awesome. But Brooke, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out and talk with me today. We will leave your Twitter, your Instagram, and everything from the Draft Network down there so guys can follow you. And if you guys ever need a badass house down in the panhandle of Florida, my girl's got you.
Yes. Thank you for having me. Always a good time seeing you, and go Bills.
All right, Brooke. We'll catch you sometime soon. Take care.
Thank you.